In the name of the Most High Yah, which is short for the Most High Yahweh, in the name of his Son, the soon coming King of the earth, Yahweh Shai, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Hebrew Israelite Messiah. We come today on Wednesday with the word. I am finally able to resume my normal schedule and in my normal position here after the accident. I give praise to the Most High that he has caused me great recovery. I'm able to walk. Yesterday I walked a little bit more than a half a mile. My swelling in my arm my hand is completely gone. Still sore in my thumb, but it's just sore. My side where the kidney had been bruised is now feeling more like a cramp than actual the excruciating pain I was in. So I'm recovering very nicely, and I want to thank you all who have been praying for me. I want to give praise to the Most High for you, for the prayers that you offer. During World War II, I was just talking to my wife about this morning. During World War II, there was a soldier in the Nazi army, Hans something, I forgot his name, some German name, Hans something. He wrote a book. And many years ago, my wife read the book, and this is like more than 25 years ago. But anyway, this guy was in the Nazi army, and he was a Christian in the Nazi army. And he was telling, in the course of the book, he was telling one in the barracks, he was telling his fellow Nazi soldiers that Germany was going to lose the war. And they said to him, why do you say that? How do you know that Germany's going to lose the war? And the reason it was such an unbelievable statement to his fellow soldiers was because if you actually studied World War II, and I've done a lot, extensive studies. I took courses in college on World War II and on the Holocaust, and I've read Holocaust literature. And it was a point in the late 1930s where Germany was basically unstoppable. They had built up their war machine over the course of the 30s, while everybody else was in depression, and while everybody thought that they were abiding by a treaty they had made after World War I, where they would not build up their arms. They were building up to the teeth. And not only did they have tons and billions of dollars of armaments, but they had advanced, sophisticated equipment. Some of the equipment actually came from IBM, the United States IBM. And there were other firms in the United States that were supporting them, and other firms from other places. Anyway, Hitler built up an air force. He built up a tank force, a ground force, and he trained his men. And when they started moving on their neighboring countries, they were unstoppable. They were moving through, they had come through all of the Western European nations, including Paris. They were just marching through like a hot knife through butter. So when this guy said Germany's going to lose the war, people were laughing at him. And his fellow soldiers were laughing at him, and they asked him, why do you think Germany's going to lose the war? Well, he actually had studied prophecy. And in the book of Revelation, when you look at Revelation chapter 13, and let's take a look at it, Revelation chapter 13, which we're looking at now, Revelation chapter 13. And I'm going to begin at verse 11. Now, in Revelation 13, just to give you a synopsis, we're not going into great detail today. We do have a study on the Revelation, a series we did is either 2018 or 2019. I think we did a 2019 series. We normally try to hit Revelation every year, and I think we did the series in 2019. But it's on the website, rawhebrewremnant.org. Raw Hebrew Remnant, one word, Raw Hebrew Remnant, no underscore. rawhebrewremnant.org, and we did the series there, and we go into great detail in every chapter, just like we're doing now when we're doing our Isaiah series. We go to every chapter and we go great detail, line by line, precept by precept, here a little, there a little, with the whole book of Revelation. And in Revelation 13, I said I was going to begin at verse 11, but let me read verse 1 and 2 for context so we understand what's going on here. It was because of this prophecy in Revelation chapter 13 that this German soldier said Germany was going to lose the war. And let's take a look at it in verse 1 and 2. And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. Verse 2. And the beast which I saw, now watch this very carefully. Even though we're doing a cursory look at this, you can pick up some things here as we're going to compare a couple of scriptures to help you with this. But it goes into much greater detail. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard. Notice the animals. Watch the animals that are being described here. And his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. So let's look at this real quick. Listen carefully. 3 animals you heard in verse 2. You heard a leopard, you heard a lion, and you heard a bear. Okay? You also saw that the beast had 7 heads. And you also saw that the beast had 10 horns. It had 7 heads. It's an animal. A beast is an animal, in literal terms, I mean. It had 7 heads. It had 10 horns. And it is described as parts of 3 different animals. 3 different animals. A leopard, a bear, and a lion. Okay? Now let's find out very quickly who this beast is from the Bible. It's not hard, but most people don't do enough reading and studying and comparing scriptures to see this. But when you look at Daniel chapter 7, it answers the question of who this animal is. You can see it in Daniel chapter 7. So let's take a look at Daniel chapter 7. And we're going to see why the German man was right. Obviously, we could look back in history and see Germany did not win the war. But he went by this Bible prophecy to understand that. Daniel chapter 7, and let's watch. I'm going to read from verse 1 down to verse 7. Daniel chapter 7, from verse 1 to verse 7. We're comparing this to Revelation 13, verse 1 and 2. All right? Revelation 13, verse 1 and 2. And remember, we had a beast that had 7 heads and 10 horns, and he was made up of three different animals: a leopard, a bear, and a lion. And it was one beast. All right? So let's take a look. Daniel chapter 7, verses 1 to 7. I want you to watch for the animals in these 7 verses, because you're going to find it's the same animals. Okay? In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the 4 winds of the heavens strode upon the great sea. And 4 great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. The first was like a lion, and had eagle's wings. I beheld, till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made to stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. First beast Daniel saw was a lion. Second one, and behold, another beast, a second, like unto a bear. And it raised itself up on one side, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it between the teeth of it. And they said thus unto it, arise, devour much flesh. A lion and a bear. In Revelation, we saw a lion and a bear, and we also saw a leopard. It's not hard to see what the next beast is going to be. Daniel chapter 7, verse 6. After this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given unto it. So Daniel has seen 3 beasts: a lion, a bear, and a leopard so far. In Revelation 13, it was 1 beast that was made up of a lion, a bear, and a leopard. Okay, I want to make sure you're with me. So you had 1 beast in Revelation that was given power, seat, and authority from the dragon. Here in Daniel, you got 3 beasts that are made up of the 3 animals that 1 beast was made up of in Revelation. Let's continue. Verse 7. After this, I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it. And it had 10 horns. There's your 10 horns. So if you look at the 3 beasts of Daniel chapter 7, watch carefully. Let's count the total number of heads on the 4 beasts that we have seen here. The one we just read about, we can imply only has 1 head because it didn't say anything about multiple heads. The lion one only had 1 head. The bear one only had 1 head. But the leopard one had 4 heads. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's a total of 7 heads. What did we see in Revelation 13, verse 1? A beast rise up out of the sea having what? 7 heads. And then in verse 7, it said that last beast had 10 horns. What did we see in Revelation chapter 13? 7 heads and 10 horns. It's not a big stretch of the imagination to understand that the beast that we're seeing in Revelation 13 is a conglomeration of the 4 beasts we see in Daniel chapter 7. It's a combination of all 4 built into one. Okay. And again, just for the sake of prophecy, in Revelation chapter 17, verse 15, the waters that these beasts come out of represent peoples, nations, and tongues. So in other words, out of skirmish of peoples, nations, and tongues, these powers arise. And that's generally how world powers arise. World powers arise through bloodshed, through revolution, through war. That's how powers arise on the earth. There's no peaceful transitions of power when one nation is taken over another nation. Okay? In Daniel chapter 7, just again to clarify the beast, Daniel chapter 7, verse 17. These great beasts, which are 4 kings, which shall arise out of the earth. The word king here is also the word for kingdom or nation. The first, just to make a long story short, because we can't go into all of it now, but the lion is Babylon. The bear was the Media-Persian Empire. The leopard was Alexander the so-called Great in the Greek Empire. And the last beast with the 10 horns is the Roman Empire. And it said that this beast was diverse from all the beasts before, because Revelation 13 shows us, and let's go back to Revelation 13. Revelation 13 shows us that the reason this 4th combination kingdom is different from all the rest is because of this. Revelation 13, let's read verse 3 and 4. Revelation 13, 3 and 4. Now in Daniel 7, we didn't go into it, but a little horn rose up. A little horn that was religious in power. And that's what makes this beast different from the others. Let's take a look. Revelation 13, verse 3 and 4. Well, let me start again at verse 1 and go down to verse 4 for context, since we read all of that stuff in Daniel 7. And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Now, here's an interesting thing that we did not see in Daniel, but we're seeing in Revelation, and there's a reason for it. And upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. Crowns are on the horns. There were no crowns on the horns in Daniel. There are crowns on the horns here. There's a reason for that. But most people don't pick up those details. Got to be careful when you read prophecy. Read everything, every word. So there are crowns on the horns. Okay? And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. And I saw, as it were, one of his heads wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world wondered after the beast, and they worshiped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. And they worshiped the dragon. Y'all should remember that. This is more than just a government. It's a center of worship. It's religious. So it's a government that's religious. And they worshiped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast, and they worshiped the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? So the beast is a government, a kingdom, a nation that is a center of worship. And the Bible showed us the fourth beast, I told y'all, came out of Rome. It's a combination of different kingdoms that come out of Rome and is a center of worship. See, the Bible doesn't come out and say Catholic Church. It doesn't. But it gives you, it points fingers. And so if you're looking at it, it'll say, okay, it'll show you this fourth beast is coming out of Rome. This fourth beast has a little horn, a man that everybody worships. This fourth beast is a center of worship, but it's also a government. There's only one entity in the history of planet Earth that fits this description. That's what the Bible does. It lines up all the clues, and then it tells you, look at the clues and tell me what it is. It's the Roman Catholic Church. Okay? Now, the reason they had horns on their, crowns on their horns was Revelation chapter 17. And again, we're not going into the detail that I would go into if we were actually studying this, but I'm trying to set you up for what we're getting ready to look at in terms of what we're talking about tonight. And by the way, the subject tonight is when prophecy is against you. When prophecy is against you. That implies a lot of things, and we're going to talk about that because that's what we're dealing. This will help us in the current situation we are right now, our current situation we are, and going forward. Because brothers and sisters, we're getting ready to go into the darkest time in Earth's history. We're already, I think everybody understands, we're in unprecedented times. Never in Earth's history have this happened, what we're dealing with right now. Yes, there's been plagues before that have affected millions of people before. Hundreds of thousands of people have died from plagues before. But we're in a world economy right now. We're in a world economy. Nobody with a right mind is going to dispute that. Not only are we in a world economy, we're in basically a one world government that's centered in the UN. So now, because of this plague, we have a world economy that's coming to a halt. And it's controlled. This has never happened before in world history. And you're going to see more things that you've never seen before in world history happening in the next couple of years. And so what we're talking about tonight is designed to prepare you for that. Because the thing is, brothers and sisters, unfortunately, many of our brothers and sisters get caught up in the media, get caught up in the media hype, the media narrative. If you understand prophecy, there is no need to panic about what the media is lying to you about. And that's what they're doing, lying to you. Revelation chapter 17. So we saw this beast, right? 7 heads, 10 horns. Okay. Here it is again in Revelation chapter 17. Now I want to tell you, the events of 17 happened before 13. You'll see why in a moment. But Revelation 17, real quick. Revelation 17, 1 through 3, 1, 2, and 3. Revelation 17, 1, 2, and 3. And there came one of the seven angels, which had the seven vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither. I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication. And the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having what? 7 heads and 10 horns. It's the same beast. And the woman represents the religious part. The woman represents the religious part. Always in Bible prophecy, a woman represents the religious part. Even with Israel, the woman in chapter 12 of Revelation with the 12 crown, with the crown of 12 stars on her head, and the sun at her head, and the moon at her feet. That's the nation of Israel. It always represents a religious entity, a woman. Okay. And that's why we did a study a couple of weeks ago with the woman is the sign. The woman is literally the sign of the condition of Yah's people and of the earth. All you got to do is look at the condition of the woman. It tells you everything you need to know. What they acting like, how they acting, how they dressing, what they doing, what their morals like. Are they uppity? Are they high-minded? Are they, as a general rule, are they humbled? Are they proud? That shows you the condition, spiritual condition of the rest of the place. Anyway, here's this woman. She's a whore. And then later on in this chapter, let's see. Let's go talk about them 10 horns. We're talking about the horns with the crowns on. Verse 12, Revelation 17, verse 12. Watch this. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings. The 10 horns represent 10 different kingdoms or nations, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. So in Revelation 17, they think about what it said. They were kings with no kingdom. Isn't that strange? How could you be a king and have no kingdom? But they receive power as kings for 1 hour with the beast. Which brings us back to Revelation 13, where you see this same beast has crowns. Because when a king becomes a king, what does he get? A crown. He's coronated, right? Get a crown. So Revelation 13 is telling you the completed work of Asatan in this entity, because the horns had crowns on. It says they will share power for 1 hour. In Bible prophecy, a day represents a year. Okay? So that an hour, 1/24th of a day, or 1/24th of a year is 15 days. They will have a lockdown power the way they want it on a worldwide scale for a very short time. Okay? And in Revelation 18 tells us that the plagues fall in 1 day. That's a 1-year period in Bible prophecy. So the plagues are going to fall over a 1-year period. They're going to have lockdown power, though, over everything for about a 2-week period. And it makes sense because, brothers and sisters, what we're dealing with here is a repeat of what Nimrod was attempting to do in the book of Genesis, if you recall. Nimrod had the whole world, right, under his dominion. He was a mighty hunter before Yahweh. Remember? And it said that the whole world was of one language and one speech. And they said, let us build a tower unto heaven. They were defying the Most High Yah. Nimrod was leading that effort. and they had the whole world under one language, one economy, one king. And then Yah confused the languages and threw them off. This is a repeat. Why? Let us never forget some basic principles, my brothers and sisters. And again, with media hype, with false teachers, false religions, with false gods, it's easy to get confused if you're listening to all this craziness out here in the air. But never forget one basic thing. This is a war between Messiah and Asatan. Messiah wants worship because he represents his father. Asatan wants worship, and they worshiped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. Asatan said to the Mashiach Yahushua, he said, all these things, he showed them all the kingdoms of the world and the glory of them from a high place. And he said, all these things will I give you if you fall down and worship me. Because he's looking for worship. And brothers and sisters, it shouldn't be hard for us to see that. Really shouldn't, though we do get confused. All you got to do is look at everybody in the world. Look at anybody they call a star. For people to run and ask for autographs or want a picture or selfie with the star, right? That's worship. What you're doing is exalting a human being to the level of a God. People go crazy, get delirious when they see a certain rock star, music star, television star, sports star. I remember once I was in a mall. This is a long time ago. I'm in the mall getting my son some sneakers. And all of a sudden, everybody started running in the mall. It's like 25 years ago. Everybody started running. I thought it was a fire. And everybody's yelling. We wondered what was going on. I mean, it was a mall, right? And at that time, malls were more popular, I guess, than they are obviously now. But a lot of people used to hang out in malls. So especially young people was running. As it turned out, an NBA basketball player had simply walked into the mall. And by walking into the mall, he had everybody going crazy. Just walking into the mall. Because people worship people. And people that get that adoration, whether they want it or not, are being worshipped as gods. And it's just a microcosm of what Asatan wants from the earth. So this whole thing is about worship. So now Revelation 13 shows us that first beast is the Roman Catholic Church, which is the Vatican City, which is a government, which is centered in Rome, which is a center of worship. And it's also a government on a worldwide scale with the Pope as the head of that government. It's a literal government. It receives envoys from other countries and ambassadors from other countries, and it sends out ambassadors, including to the United States of America. So now, there was a second beast, though. There's a second beast that began to exist after the existence of the first beast. This second beast was different from the first beast. Let's take a look at it. But the second beast gave honor to the first beast. Revelation chapter 13, beginning at verse 11. Revelation chapter 13, beginning at verse 11. And this is why the German soldier said, Germany's going to lose the war. Revelation 13, verse 11. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth. And he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. And he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. So here's a beast that looks like a lamb. In the Bible, the lamb represents Messiah. He is the Lamb of Yah that taketh away the sin of the world. In several places here in the book of Revelation, all praise to the Most High Yah and to the Lamb. So the Lamb is representing Messiah. This is a nation, but this nation wasn't like the other beast that we saw both in Daniel and this one in Revelation 13, verse 1, this one did not come up out of the sea. This one came up out of the earth. Whereas the sea represents peoples, nations, multitudes, and tongues, this one in Revelation 13, verse 11, came up in relative obscurity. I say relative obscurity, and it represented the Lamb, or claimed to represent the Lamb. It's a nation come up in relative obscurity, claimed to represent the Lamb, came up after Rome, but it's being controlled, operated, and it really is a dragon. And it exercises all the power that Rome, in other words, the whole world wonders after. Remember the first beast? It said all the world wondered after the beast. Well, this second one, it said it exercises all the power of the first beast before him. Now, when it says the first beast before him, it means the first beast, when you look that up in the Greek, first beast, which is under its supervision. So the second beast is under the supervision of the first beast. It's like a puppet to the first beast. First beast controls it, but it has worldwide following, worldwide influence, worldwide power. So it's a nation that arose after the kingdom of Rome. It's a nation that arose in relative obscurity, but rose to worldwide prominence and power. And it represents a lamb, what is claiming to represent a lamb, but is really a dragon. What religion is that? That represents Messiah, claims to represent Messiah. It's Christianity. So it's a Christian nation that claims to represent Messiah. That's what Christianity is. Christian, Christos, Christ-like, correct? Okay. Never mind my beard, brother. Hear the word. Never mind the beard. My beard's wherever the hair goes when I shave my face. My beard, man, don't get me started. Anyway, my beard. Would you rather have the word, or would you rather have some hair on your face? What's the deal, man? Anyway, what I was saying was, this nation is a Christian nation that claims to represent Messiah and is really a dragon. Come up in relative obscurity, okay? Come up in relative obscurity, and is a worldwide power. What nation is it? There's only one nation that fits this description. Worldwide in its power, has the whole world following after it, just like the beast did, and represents the Lamb, is a Christian nation, but speaks as a dragon. In other words, it really operates as devils. Who is that? There's only one. It's the United States of America. So the United States of America is in Bible prophecy as a nation that would do the bidding of Rome and has worldwide power and authority, is operating under the spirit of the dragon, but is claiming to represent the Lamb. That's why the German soldier knew that Germany wasn't going to win the war. Why? Because prophecy was against Germany. At the time of World War II, at the time in the late 1930s, 37, 38, 39, 36 even, from that time, Germany was a military power, and it had become an industrial power after Hitler rebuilt the economy, okay? And at this time, when Hitler started marching in 1938, he started marching on his European neighbors. He started marching on Holland, and he started marching on Belgium, and he started marching on Czechoslovakia, and he marched on Poland, and he marched on Sweden. He was marching on all of these nations successfully. And they had garrisons in all of these nations, marched on France, came through and took France. The United States was not involved in the war at that time. They were not involved in the war, okay? It wasn't until 1941, when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, that the United States got involved in the war. And once the United States got involved in the war, 1941 now, The war was over by 1945. 4 years, the war was over. At the end of the war, World War II, Germany was in shambles. Berlin was destroyed. Okay, Berlin was destroyed. They had the war trials in Nuremberg, and Nuremberg was destroyed. Hamburg was leveled. All the major cities in Germany were destroyed. It was so bad that when the Russians came from the east, and the United States and the Allies came from the west into Germany. The Russians were just snatching women off the street and raping them. It got to the point where Russian ladies of society became prostitutes. This is real true. Became prostitutes because the German ladies of society became prostitutes because the Russian soldiers was coming in, snatching them and ravishing and raping. Okay, that's how it was going. So Germany was finished. Right before the United States ended the war, Winston Churchill begging Roosevelt. Finally, Roosevelt gets in the war. London was also destroyed. If you recall, Hitler was bombing the mess out of England. He could have beaten them, but he had to back up and he tried to come in on the ground. That's when he lost. If he'd have stayed in the air, they'd have won. But it wasn't destined. Prophecy was against them. Okay? Prophecy was against them. They weren't going to win. All right? When United at the end of the war in 45, Germany was a mess. France was a mess. Italy was a mess. All Europe had to be rebuilt. England was a mess. As a matter of fact, the United States became the big winners of World War II. It was after World War II, the United States put its garrisons and put its military bases in Germany, which they have to this day, in England, which they have to this day, in France, which they have to this day, in England, which they have to this day, in Turkey, which they have to this day. After World War II. In Japan, that's when we put military bases in Japan, which we have to this day in Okinawa, Japan. They put military bases in the Philippines, which they have to this day. As a matter of fact, the United States of America has military bases in more than 100 different countries. 100 different countries. Okay? They were the big winners of World War II. They were able to control oil. They made deals with oil-rich countries after World War II. Our infrastructure had not got touched. The United States made big money off of World War II. They became the big winners, as prophecy showed us. So, brothers and sisters, it's extremely important that we have an understanding of prophecy, because if we have an understanding of prophecy, we will know who prophecy is against and who is for. Let's give another example. As we mentioned many times, one of my favorite people to ever rise up out the earth was Malcolm X. Malcolm X had a plan. Malcolm X had a plan. His plan first, when he joined the Nation of Islam, his plan was to spread Islam along with Elijah Muhammad. That was their plan, to spread Islam throughout the Black population of the United States. And their plan was to approach the U.S. government. This you can look this up yourself. Was to approach the U.S. government, for the government to give the nation of people, of Black people, which they had planned to be Nation of Islam converts, a large parcel of land in the United States. They wanted them to give us that, or give us land in another country in their territories. That's what they wanted. That was the plan. They wanted the United States to give them a large parcel of land, which they were right to ask for, because all the immigrants that ever came to the United States, especially when they came in the 1800s, when we, as our fathers, were building this land up, which we did with free labor for over 300 years, they were given land. They were given tools. They were given the means to develop the land. They were given schooling to show how to raise farms when they came here out of Europe. They were given this stuff. They didn't have to pay for it. It wasn't a loan. It was given to them, the Europeans, when they came here, and immigrants in the 1800s. They gave it to them. Okay? So we was like, so I think rightly so, Elijah Muhammad was like, now it's our turn. We built up this land. Y'all don't want us here, so give us a piece of land for us, and this will be our nation. That's what he asked for. Of course, prophecy was against him, because nowhere in the Bible does it talk about giving Hebrews land in their enemies' land, given to them by their enemies. Doesn't say that. So as much as it was a good plan, as much as it made perfect sense, Prophecy was against it. Okay. After Malcolm X split from the Nation of Islam, he had created an organization called the Organization of Afro-American Unity. And Malcolm X was a master teacher as well as a master organizer. So he was organizing with not only Hebrews in the United States, but he was organizing with people of color from different countries, particularly African nations. They were organizing because they had a branch of that organization in Africa. And he was organizing, and the plan was to bring the United States government to world court in the UN and charge them with genocide of Black people in the United States and demand that the UN redress this injustice to the U.S. citizens. After all, as Malcolm X said, the United States were going all over the world claiming to spread democracy. And so now, while they spread democracy, they're lynching their own citizens, mistreating their own citizens, murdering their own citizens. And so he's like, I'm taking y'all to the world court. It was a good idea. And he was going to be successful. The problem was prophecy was against him. The Bible never speaks of the Hebrews going to the world court of the heathen to obtain justice. And that's what he was trying to do. Of course, he was murdered. Fred Hampton and the Black Panthers, Huey Newton. First was Huey Newton and Eldridge Cleaver and guys like Bobby Hutton. They started an organization in Oakland, California called the Black Panther Party of Self-Defense. This was developed as a result of the oppression of the Black person in the United States, so that they read the Constitution. Huey Newton was an intelligent man. He died a horrible death of a crackhead, but that does not take away from the legacy of his life. I don't care what anybody says. But Huey Newton was a brilliant young man. He started to study on his own law. This is a man that graduated high school without being able to read, taught himself how to read, and he started studying law in City College in California. And he knew enough of the Constitution and understood enough so that he understood it was his right to bear arms. And so they knew they were allowed to bear arms, to carry rifles openly as a legality. They could do that legally. And by law, they were allowed to observe the police from a distance of 500 feet. They didn't have to interfere with the police business, but as citizens, they can observe the policemen from 500 feet away. So the police, as we know very well, would regularly go into the Black community, not to protect and serve, but to oppress and beat up. And so now the Black Panthers, the Party for Self-Defense, had gathered together themselves, organized. Huey Newton, Eldridge Cleaver were master organizers, organized, okay, with the other brothers. Now you have people coming into this movement, later it became, Cleaver married a woman, I forgot her name. She went in there. There were other sisters. Angela Davis was helping her. Different people came in, and they had lots of brain power and intelligence in this movement. And so the police couldn't mess with the people in the ghettos of Oakland, because the Black Panthers would march the streets with rifles, and they would stand 500 feet from the police. So here, if you're a cop and you have it in your mind to beat up a brother with your nightstick or to shoot him because you just hate people of brown skin, you can look in 500 feet from you, and there's some brothers with rifles, loaded rifles, watching you. Obviously, those type of activities were, in terms of police brutality, were greatly reduced in the neighborhoods of Oakland. They spread this information. Now it started out the Black Panther Party of Self-Defense. Then it became the Black Panther Party. It was a political party, basically Marxist, communist type of Leninist type party, left-leaning party, and it spread throughout the cities of the United States. Went to one city called Chicago, Illinois, where there was another very brilliant young man, probably one of the most masterful organizers that we've ever seen at the time. From the time he was 18 or 19, this was Fred Hampton. Fred Hampton, not only did he organize the Black Panther Party for self-defense, he also created a breakfast feeding program for the neighborhood. He also created he got in touch with people, brothers and sisters, and not only that, not just Black people. Fred Hampton started bringing all races of poor people into the movement. People don't know that. He was also bringing poor Caucasian people and Spanish people and Indian people into the movement and making them understand this was a class struggle. He was right. And the goal was to develop power within the poor community of Black people in particular, but poor people in general, to develop political power and self-determination. It was a good idea, but prophecy was against them. Eldridge Cleaver ended up running to Cuba and then to Algeria. His wife Kathleen followed him. Huey Newton was arrested for murder. He brilliantly, and with the help of many support, he was released, found out he was acting in self-defense, but then later on, of course, the FBI and the CIA working overtime with J. Edgar Hoover and George Bush was the head of the CIA. George Bush was the head of the CIA, okay? Overtime to destroy the Black Panther Party, and they did. They destroyed it. Huey Newton ended up being murdered on the Oakland Street around 1989, 1888, somewhere in that area. Cleaver came back and became a conservative Republican Mormon, believe that. And so the whole thing was blown up because the idea was very good. It was solid, it was brilliant. But prophecy was against it because nowhere in prophecy does it say that the Hebrews were going to organize in their enemy's land and take over their enemy on their enemy's political power. See, brothers and sisters, what we need to understand is politics of this world belong to Asatan. You're a Democrat, you're a Republican, you're independent. That's Asatan. You never see that in the Bible. The Bible government is a monarchy. The Hebrew government has always been a monarchy. What do I mean by that? It's a king. You have a king and you have a kingdom. The king is supreme. Now, it didn't start off like that. In the Hebrew economy, before there was a monarchy, the nation was supposed to be led by the priesthood. Samuel was a judge. They had judges. But they got so corrupt before Samuel came, they got so corrupt, worshiping other gods, that the priesthood was out of control and the nation was out of control. And then he rose up Eli, then he rose up Samuel. And then from Samuel, the nation asked for a king. We know the story. Of course, the book of Deuteronomy outlines the path that should be followed if the nation were to choose a king. The Most High already knew that was going to happen. It was prophecy was with that. And so they chose a king, first Shaul of the tribe of Benjamin, and then David of the tribe of Judah, which was prophesied to come from, which was prophesied to produce the lawgiver. Okay? Judah. That was prophecy working for them. It's a monarchy, and it forever will be, because now Messiah is going to become king of this earth, with the center of this earth being Israel, and the center of Israel being Jerusalem. David is going to be king in Jerusalem. The Bible says that. Let's take a look at a couple of witnesses just to make sure we're not making stuff up. I just opened it to Jeremiah, so let's look at Jeremiah chapter 30, because I know it's in there. Jeremiah chapter 30. Jeremiah chapter 30. I'm going to start at verse 9. I'm going to start at verse 8. Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 8. And I'm going to read down to verse 10. Jeremiah chapter 30, verses 8 through 10. It still kills me. Brother walks in my Bible study talking about where's your beard, as if I got to have a... Never mind. Let me not get... Listen, the word is more important than the damn beard. A lot of fools run around with beards, don't know the word. We need to get our priorities straight. Beard, ain't nobody in place in the Bible say it's a law you got to wear a beard. There's no place in the Bible that says that. It says if you have a beard, how are you supposed to trim your beard? Know the word. Anyway, Jeremiah chapter 30, verses 8 through 10. I don't like a lot of hair. That's just me. I like clean shaven. For it shall come to pass in that day, saith Yahweh of hosts, that I will break his yoke from off thy neck, and will burst thy bonds, and strangers shall no more serve themselves of him. But they shall serve Yahweh their Most High, and David their king, whom I will raise up unto them. This is Jeremiah. This is many hundreds of years after David had already died. And he says, they shall serve David their king, whom I will raise up unto them. So he knows it's acknowledging David is dead and he's going to be raised up. That's what the Bible talks about in first resurrection. Okay. Therefore, fear thou not, my servant Jacob, saith Yahweh, neither be dismayed, O Israel, for lo, I will save thee from afar, and thy seed from the land of their captivity. And Jacob shall return and shall be in rest and be quiet, and none shall make him afraid. So that's one witness that tells us David is going to be raised up. Another one is Ezekiel chapter 37. Ezekiel chapter 37. Let's take a look at that. And there's more than this too. These are just the two witnesses that come off the top of my head here. But Ezekiel chapter 37, I'm going to start at verse 21. I'll start at verse 21, and I'm going to go from verse 21 to 24. And say unto them, thus saith the Most High Yahweh, behold, I will make the children of Israel from among the, I will take the children of Israel from among the heathen, whether they be gone, and will gather them on every side, and bring them into their own land. And I will make them one nation in the land of the mountains of Israel. One king shall be king to them all. There shall be no more two nations, neither shall they be divided into two kingdoms any more at all. Neither shall they defile themselves any more with their idols, nor with their detestable things, nor with any of their transgressions. But I will save them out of all their dwelling places wherein they have sinned, and will cleanse them. So shall they be my people, and I will be their Most High. And David, my servant, shall be king over them. And they all shall have one shepherd, and they shall also walk in my judgments and observe my statutes and do them. So David is going to be raised up to be king in Jerusalem. Messiah is going to be king of the earth. Father is king of the universe. Y'all got that? So Father is the king of all. Everyone is subservient to the Father. Messiah is king of this earth. David is king of the capital of this earth, which is Jerusalem. That's the order. Okay? That's prophecy. So that's the government that the Most High has. That's his government. And the Bible says the government will rest. As a matter of fact, let's take a look at that. We know this scripture. This is Isaiah chapter 9. Isaiah chapter 9. Okay, Isaiah chapter 9. I'm going to start at verse 6 and read to verse 7. Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6 and 7. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, or Al Shaddai, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and peace shall be no end. And upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to order it and to establish it with judgment and with justice from henceforth even forever. The zeal of Yahweh of hosts will perform this. So you see, there's a government. It's the Most High's government. Of course, there's the law, which is the covenant. And Messiah is going to rule this earth. Government's going to be on his shoulder. David's going to be under him, and he's going to establish David's kingdom as he promised that he would. And so that's the government. That's the political system that Yah's people are in and will be in. Okay. So if you are trying to help your people, which the brothers I mentioned, all of them, Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm X, Fred Hampton, Huey Newton, Eldridge Cleaver. They were all trying to help their people through political means. Martin Luther King, right? Stokely Carmichael, who became Kwame Ture, right? These all tried through political revolution to help their people. The problem was and is prophecy is against them. Okay? Let's talk about the United States government. Although we have just already read how the United States government will and is a worldwide power and exercises power of the beast before Rome, what is the Bible telling us the end result of that government? What is the end result of it? And that's in Revelation chapter 14, because, of course, through the United States, Rome is going to exercise the mark of the beast and enforce it through the United States of America. Okay? In fact, let's take a look at Revelation 13 real quick. We stopped at verse 14. Actually, we stopped at verse 12. So let's read Revelation 13. I'm going to read from verse 11 down to verse 15. Revelation chapter 13, talking about the United States of America, from verse 11 to verse 15. And remember, the first beast is Rome. So the beast that rises up out of the earth that looks like a lamb and speaks as a dragon is the USA. The seven-headed, 10-horn beast that supervises it is the Vatican in Rome. Somebody might ask, where does the Ashkenazi Jews come in? What you need to understand is that Gog and Magog and the Edomites are one. Gog and Magog and the Edomites are one. There was a sign, there's a couple of signs in the Bible that show us this. Do you remember the night that Messiah was betrayed and condemned? At that time, Herod, the Edomite king, was enemies with Pilate, the Roman ruler, ruler in Jerusalem. That night, the Edomites and the Romans became friends. The Bible says that in the book of Luke. That was a sign. Also, in Daniel chapter 11, it says, these shall escape out of his, that is the Roman Catholic's hand, or be delivered, Edom, Moab, and chief of the children of Ammon. What is that? Edomites are your Ashkenazi Jews in Jerusalem. Why are they delivered? Because they're one with Rome. What about Moab and Ammon? If you look at the land that Moab and Ammon occupy in Bible times, today, that land is the nation of Jordan, which is one of the few nations that recognize Israel as a nation. That's why they are one with Rome. Okay. Also, if you pay close attention, you will see the rosary prayer beads that the Catholic Church started. They created those rosary prayer beads that come from ancient Babylonian worship. Do you notice that Muslims also use the prayer beads? There is no coincidence there. Okay? No coincidence. Now, let us continue. Revelation 13, reading from verse 11, understanding that the beast rising up out of the earth is the U.S., the beast that is giving honor to is Rome. Let me read it first as it says, and then I'll change it up a bit so that it can help you understand it a little clearer. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. And he exercises all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast. In the sight of means under the supervision of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, which had a wound by a sword and did live. An image to Rome. Watch carefully. And he that would be the United States, had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. See, people focus on the mark, but they don't focus on this part for whatever reason. They're telling you this is before the mark. Whoever would not worship the image should be killed. Now let's read this again and let's substitute in the actual players instead of the symbolic names. Okay? So I'm going to read it again with the actual players. And there arose another nation coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. And the United States of America exercises all the power of the Vatican before him, and causes the earth and them which dwell therein to worship Catholicism and Christianity, whose deadly wound was healed. And the United States of America doth great wonders, and that so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which the United States had power to do under the supervision of the Catholic Church, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the Catholic Church, to Christianity, which had a wound by a sword and did live. And the United States had power to give life unto the image of the Catholic Church. And that the image of the Catholic Church should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the Catholic Church to be killed. That's their plan. What is the image to the Catholic Church? Number one image is Protestant Christianity. In the United States of America, you're already seeing a movement of politicians with power toward Protestant Christianity and Catholicism. Again, I like to point out, please search this for yourself. There are only 9 judges on the most powerful court in the United States, the Supreme Court. 6 out of the 9 are Roman Catholic. 3 out of the 9 are Ashkenazi Jews. See, they got everybody looking at conservative and liberal. That's a smokescreen. 6 of the 9 are Roman Catholic. 3 of the 9, and there are only 9, are Ashkenazi. Who is the head of the House of Representatives right now? Nancy Pelosi, a Roman Catholic. Before her was a man named John Boehner from Ohio, a Roman Catholic. And when Nancy Pelosi first became Speaker of the House in the 90s, there was a minority whip, a guy from Virginia, a Roman Catholic and a Freemason. Right now, who's running for president? Joe Biden, a Roman Catholic. Who was he running against? Bernie Sanders, an Ashkenazi Jew. You think these are coincidences? It's no coincidence. Who's the vice president right now? A Roman Catholic. Think this is a coincidence? This ain't no coincidence. Who's Anthony Fauci, who's heading up the disease, the messaging on this coronavirus right now? Dr. Anthony Fauci, a Jesuit-trained Roman Catholic. Who's the biggest name on Fox News right now? A Roman Catholic. Who are the biggest names on MSNBC? Ashkenazi Jews and Roman Catholics. Morning Joe, Mika Brzezinski, and Joe Scarborough, both of them Roman Catholic. You think this is coincidence? It's all up on us, and most people don't see it. But I asked the question earlier, what is the end result of all of these things in terms of these powers that we are now seeing right in front of us that are going to start threatening us with life and death? Revelation chapter 19 shows us, among other places, It shows us. See, brothers and sisters, we have to understand what prophecy is for and what prophecy is against. Why? Because if you believe the Bible, if you do, prophecy tells you everything. That's why the boy knew the Nazis weren't going to rule the earth. There was going to be no Third Reich that ruled for 1,000 years. Prophecy was against them. And as noble as my man Malcolm X, Fred Hampton, Elijah Muhammad, Khalid Muhammad, Huey Newton, Eldridge Cleaver, Kwame Ture, as noble and as brave and as martyred as these men were, prophecy was against them. Prophecy was against them. And I can tell you right now, based on prophecy, before we look at Revelation 19, they're going to continue to murder Hebrews in the streets because we will get no redress. See, the murders continue as we keep going to Caesar for redress. We keep going to Pharaoh asking for him to stop his people from killing us. How does that sound? We keep going to Pharaoh asking him to have his people stop killing us. How does that sound? Problem is, brothers and sisters, just as our fathers made the mistake in Ezekiel chapter 20, after being in Egypt for a couple of hundred years, let's say it was 200 years they were in Egypt, after having Joseph, who was the brothers from Hebrews of the tribe of Joseph, obviously he's the father of the tribe of Joseph, tribe of Ephraim and Manasseh come out of Joseph, who saved the whole Egyptian nation. They thought they could be in Egyptian territory. They thought they could be in Egyptian culture and society and be accepted. But they were placed into slavery and hard bondage. And it got to the point where the Egyptian government said, any male that's born among the Hebrews, throw it in the river. You see, they started thinking they were actually Egyptians. And the Most High let them know in the most harsh manner they weren't Egyptians. We are Hebrews. That's the first problem. We don't even know who we are. We are Hebrews of the tribes of the 12 tribes of Israel. Most of us in America are coming out of the southern tribe of Judah off the west coast of Africa. The southern kingdom. Okay. That being the case, we're not going to get any redress from this government. It's not going to happen. And anytime it appears, and we can know this from just our own history from looking at it, anytime it appears something would arise that might help us, it's always change, turn, tweak so that it doesn't help us as much as we thought it would. 100% of the time this happens. And it's going to continue. Why? Because the Most High wants us to know we're not American. As Malcolm said, if we were American, we wouldn't have to go through this. There'd be no need for a Black Panther Party or a Nation of Islam. If we were American, there'd be no need for marching in the streets and demanding justice if we were Americans. Do the Polish people have to march in streets when they come from Poland and demand justice? Do the people that come here from Ireland, do they have to march in streets and demand justice to become Americans? Do the Italians have to come here from Italy and demand justice in the streets to be treated as Americans? No. There's only one group of people that's in the United States ever in its history that were treated like us. And its reason is because we're not American. We are Hebrew. We are Israelites. The Most High is waiting for us, like he waited for our fathers, to recognize that and to come back to our God. Now, one of my also favorite brothers is Khalid Muhammad, who also was poisoned. They say he died of an aneurysm or something. They killed that brother because, again, he was trying to recreate or restart the Black Panther Party of self-defense. That's what Khalid Muhammad was trying to do. And he was trying to strengthen the Black community and strengthen the Black nation within this nation. Of course, prophecy was against him. Khalid Muhammad knew the Bible very well. Very well read. Very one of the most. Khalid Muhammad was probably, in my opinion, one of the most well-read black men I had ever seen that could speak the way he could, but he didn't understand Bible prophecy. If he did, he wouldn't have did what he did when he was trying to recreate the Black Panther Party of self-defense and think that he was going to move on this nation and create his own militia within this nation. Prophecy was against him, and he was murdered. May all these brothers rest in peace, and may they rise in the first resurrection. Where is this going? According to Bible prophecy, because then you can know what's getting ready to happen. First of all, the Bible tells us, let's go way back into Deuteronomy before we hit Revelation 19. I want to give you the backdrop of how this is going to go. Now, you know, when you read the Bible, that the Most High sent Moses. He called Moses and sent Moses down into Egypt, and with the announcement that Yah was going to deliver his people. Remember that? That was the announcement that Moses was given. That was the message that Moses was given, that Yah was going to deliver his people. Let my people go, he told Pharaoh, that they may worship me in the wilderness. The Bible said the Most High told Moses, I'm going to make you like a god to Pharaoh, and Aaron's going to be your prophet. That's what he told him. Now, brothers and sisters, that happened, and Moses was used by the Most High to lead the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. And the Bible says our deliverance at this time is going to be similar to that of the deliverance from Egypt. Only difference is the Bible does say to us it's going to come from the four corners of the earth, not just one nation. And the leaders that the Most High is using to bring this to pass is the 144,000 of all the men of the children of Israel, men of Israel. 12,000 men from each tribe. We don't know what tribe we're in, but we know we're Israelites. That's the thing we only need to know. Most High knows where we belong from the tribes, and he will bring us where we come from to bring forth the message that we need to bring forth. He's preparing us right now. That's the Moses of this day and the Elijah of this day, the 144,000. In Deuteronomy chapter 30, it tells us how this spark begins. And as we read this, you will understand it's already begun. Deuteronomy chapter 30, verses 1 and 2. Deuteronomy chapter 30, verses 1 and 2. This is how it begins. And it shall come to pass when all these things are come upon thee. What things? The blessing, that is the inheritance of the land, and the curse, that is the slavery, which I have set before thee. Because he said it before us in Deuteronomy 28. He says, and it shall come to pass when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse, which I have set before thee, which all that comes upon you, which it has, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations, with Yahweh thy Most High have driven thee. It shall come to pass when the curse comes on us, the blessing first, then the curse, and we'll call it to mind. It'll come to our mind, the blessing and the curse we have been under, which means we're coming to our mind of who we are. We're Israelites, and we had a blessing, and we have a curse. It's coming to our mind. It's happening now. That's an awakening. What we call now the awakening. And thou shalt return unto Yahweh thy Most High, and shalt obey his voice, according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children, with all thy heart and with all thy soul. You see, coming out of Christianity, you're coming out of Buddhism, Islam, Hinduism, all these different religions, you come into Yah. Now, this is where, again, this is my brother Khalid Muhammad made a mistake, Malcolm X also. They believe that all of us serve the same God. That's a Roman Catholic trick. If we all serve the same God, brothers and sisters, the Most High would not have had to say, thou shalt have no other gods before me. By the virtue that he had to say, thou shalt have no other gods before me, there are other things operating as gods that people worship. Okay? He says in his word, I've only chosen one nation. You only, he says, have I chosen among all the families of the earth, he says. Okay? You and Amos, chapter 3, you only have I chosen of all the families of the earth. And then here again in Deuteronomy, he says the same thing. For thou art an holy people unto Yahweh. Yahweh have chosen thee to be a special people unto himself above all people that are upon the face of the earth. He only chose one people. There's no Arabs that are his chosen. He chose Israelites of the seed of Isaac, because in Isaac shall thy seed be called. Okay? One people. They call him Yah. Don't matter what language it is. It's like the name Donald Trump is Donald Trump, whether he's in China, Korea, Mexico, or the United States. His name is Donald Trump. If he's in Russia, they call him, they speak all kind of Russian, and they'll say Donald Trump as his name. Yah is our God's name. Yah. People call other gods all these different names. That's confusion. There's only one name. Yah. Yah is his name. Yahweh means Yah exists. Ahaya means, that's the first person when he told Moses, Ahaya means I exist. Ahaya. That's the first person. I exist. Then he said, by my name, Yahweh, I was not known to your previous generations. Yahweh, Yah exists. That's him talking in the third person about himself. Okay. So there's an awakening of the chosen people in the land of their captivity. This awakening causes them to come back to their God, to leave false gods. The God of the Baptists and the SDAs are two different gods, neither of which are Israelite. There's no white Jesus in the Israelite nation. There's no European Jesus. It doesn't exist. There's no Arab man, with all due respect, named Muhammad of the Israelite nation. Even though Muhammad was a Semite, he was not of the seed of Isaac. He's an Arab. All due respect, that's not the chosen seed. It's not the chosen seed. So there's an awakening among the Israelites in the land of their captivity. That is, among generally the poorer people, because that's where we are. Among the struggling classes from which Fred Hampton, Malcolm X, Elijah Muhammad tried to help. Kwame Ture tried to help. Khalid Muhammad tried to help. And all of these men were inspired. That's what a prophet means. When you look up the word prophet, it means an inspired person. In the Bible, there were only prophets among the Hebrews. None of the other nations had prophets, not that the Most High recognized. You never hear the Most High in the Bible acknowledging any heathen as a prophet. Never sending a heathen somewhere to prophesy anything. All the books of the Bible that were written were from Hebrew prophets. And he raises up the 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel. They're his prophets in these last days. They're his inspired persons. You see, brothers and sisters, over time we have people that have rose up from the crap, from the cesspool of this nation in the United States to inspire us. Nat Turner was an inspiration before they caught him and killed him. There are some exceptions, like a John Brown, but really there's Frederick Douglass. He was an inspiration. W.E.B. Du Bois was an inspiration. Even George Washington Carver was an inspiration. They were raised up to inspire us, but prophecy was against them at that time. Marcus Garvey was an inspiration. I think anybody would say, even our enemies know, Marcus Garvey inspired people. Elijah Muhammad, I don't believe in the Nation of Islam's religious doctrines, but it's undeniable that Elijah Muhammad, even to this day, even while he's dead, he inspires people. Malcolm X inspired people. Martin Luther King inspired people. Kwame Ture, inspired people. Fred Hampton at age 19, inspired people. Huey Newton, inspired people. The spirit of inspiration causes people to recognize there's something special about an individual. The difference this time is prophecy is with us. The awakening is inspired by the Spirit of the Father. And the inspired persons are the 144,000. And because prophecy is with us, there's nothing the governments of this world will be able to do to stop us. We won't be dealing with their political system. We're not caring about their monetary system. See, that's what I'm saying, brothers and sisters. When you see people begging for money, calling themselves missionaries or ministries or whatever, nah, that's played out. It's played out. We're past the time when this thing is about money. I'm not saying people are going to be inspired to sell things and give to the cause at the very end, right before the money's worthless. But nobody's going to have to ask for it. Just like in the book of Acts, we never heard of the apostles asking anybody for money, but people was doing it of the Spirit of the Father. That's going to happen again, right before the money's worthless. But we don't have to ask anybody for money. It's not about money. That's played out. It's about Father's Spirit right now and the awakening that's taking place. Because if we're with the government of Yah, you see, that's why Messiah was killed. Messiah was crucified for the sins of his people, of the nation of Israel. It is true. But the charge was treason. Remember? They said, the scribes and Pharisees told Pilate, if you let this man go, you're not Caesar's friend. For this man said he was a king. And Pilate asked him, are you a king? And Messiah said, my kingdom is not of this world. He said, if my kingdom was of this world, my servants would fight and would not have allowed me to be taken by the Jews. But my kingdom is not from hence. And even with that, Pilate was going to let him go. But then the Jews said, but you're not Caesar's friend, because this man is challenging Caesar, saying he's a king. Brothers and sisters, we're claiming our kingdom is not of this world. Our king is Messiah. He's not of this world. That's going to be offensive to the powers of this world. It's going to be offensive. It's going to be real offensive. Can you imagine if in the United States you had, tell me, if you had a bunch of Muslims in the major cities, which is a lot of major cities that have a lot of Muslims. I'm not talking about Nation of Islam Muslims. I'm talking about Muslims from the Middle East, from places like, Syria, places like Jordan, places like Morocco, places like Libya. And suppose they all got in the street and they started yelling, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Suppose they start doing that. What would happen to them? How would that go over in this redneck United States? I'll tell you what would happen. They'd be getting shot in the street. Allahu Akbar, they would start getting shot in the street. That's what would happen. And they're not the true Israelites. We are. So imagine as we start proclaiming our King, Yahushua Mashiach, of the Father Yah, who's going to come and take this kingdom, whose law we obey. And as this is being heated up and Asatan is now inspiring with more and more deceivable power, the powers of this earth and the peoples of this earth, all the world wanders after the beast. It's going to get thick. It's going to get hectic very soon. So now it starts with an awakening. And Revelation 19 shows us how it's going to end. Revelation chapter 19, I'm going to begin at verse 11. I'm going to begin at verse 11. And I'm going to go down to verse 19 to start us off. Revelation chapter 19 from verse 11 to 19 shows us, this is what prophecy is showing us going to happen. There's an awakening taking place. I didn't read all the other, because at the time I didn't read all of the other witnesses in Ezekiel and Jeremiah and Isaiah about the same awakening we read about in Deuteronomy. But it's there also. It's in Ezekiel chapter 36 and 37. It's in Jeremiah chapter 30. Okay. It's in Isaiah chapter 10 and chapter 11 and chapter 60 and chapter 61. It's all over the place. So it's in Zechariah chapter 14 Chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 14, chapter 8 of Zechariah, same thing. It's in Malachi chapter 4. Same thing. It's in Romans chapter 11. Same thing. In here, Revelation chapter 19, I'm starting at verse 11, and I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse. And he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True. And in righteousness he doth judge and make war. His eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns. And he had a name written that no man knew but he himself. And he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of Yah. And the armies which are in heaven followed him upon white horses, clothed in fine linen, white and clean. And out of his mouth goeth a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron, and he treadeth the winepress of the fierceness and wrath of Al Shaddai. And he hath on his vesture and on his thigh a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And I saw an angel standing in the sun, and he cried with a loud voice, saying to all the fowls that fly in the midst of heaven, Come, gather yourselves together unto the supper of the great God, that ye may eat the flesh of kings, and the flesh of captains, and the flesh of mighty men, and the flesh of horses, and them that sit on them, and the flesh of all men, both free and bond, both small and great. And I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together again to make war against him that sat on the horse and against his army. And the beast was taken, verse 20, and with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, with which he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast, and them that worshipped his image. These both were cast alive into a lake of fire and burning with brimstone. Yes, it's going to end with Messiah's return. It's going to start with an awakening. They're going to try to kill us. It's going to end with the return of the Messiah. And all this is going to happen very quickly. We're coming upon these years very quickly, brothers. This is very, very rapidly. Right now is the awakening and the preparation. That's what's going on right now. It's ongoing. It's moving forward. Hebrews are waking up to who they are. And prophecies against the Caucasian man in general. Because the Caucasian man comes from Europe. That's Caucasus Mountains, Ashkenazi. All of them come from the European area. That area is from Yafet. And Noah prophesied that Shem, that Yafet shall dwell in the tents of Shem. That means he tried to take Shem's place. Gog and Magog. Let's take a look. Gog and Magog is the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal. That's out of your European nations. It's Gog and Magog that try to take Yah's kingdom and get destroyed. So that at the end of time, which is where we live, at the end of time of this earth, in terms of the wickedness of the Babylonian kingdom, the Caucasian man is prophesied to be in charge, and he's prophesied to come against the truth. All that is happening right now. Prophecies against him. He will lose. Notice Genesis chapter 10. Genesis chapter 10. I'm going to start at verse 2. The sons of Yafet, Gomer, and Magog, and Madai, and Javan, and Tubal, and Meshach, and Tirith. And the sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz, and Repha, and Togarmah. And the sons of Javan, Elisha, Tarshish, Kittim, Dudanim. By these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, everyone after their tongue, after their families, in their nations. These are your Gentiles. These are your Caucasians. These are your Caucasian so-called white people. They're prophesied to be in charge. Rome is out of their nations. Christianity is out of them. It's prophesied to be in charge at the end. It's prophesied to be destroyed by Messiah with them. Again, Gog and Magog try to surround the city. Let's take a look before we go there, though, in Ezekiel chapter 39, real quick. Ezekiel chapter 39. Ezekiel chapter 39. Ezekiel 39. Actually, I'm going to do Ezekiel 38. That's the one. Watch what it says in Ezekiel 38. I'm only going to read the first 4 verses, and then I'm going to skip down to the part where they get destroyed. And the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal. That's your Gentiles. That's your Caucasian people. And prophesy against him, and say, thus saith Yahweh, the Lord God Almighty, the Lord of hosts, that he may arise and arise against thee, prophecy is against them. And say, thus saith the Most High Yahweh, behold, I am against thee, O God, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal. And I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth and all thy army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. Yeah, they got weapons, but they're going to be destroyed. Let's skip down to that part. Ezekiel chapter 38. Let's go down to verse 21. Yeah, hurry from verse 21 to 23. This is the end of Gog and Magog. This is where we are. Prophecies against the powers that are in charge right now. Prophecies against the beast. Prophecies against the image of the beast. Prophecies against the United States in this scenario. And I will call for a sword against him throughout all my mountains, said the Most High Yahweh. Every man's sword shall be against his brother. They're going to hurt each other. And I will plead against him with pestilence and with blood. And I will rain upon him and upon his bands and upon many people that are with him, an overflowing rain and great hailstones. That's your seventh plague. Fire and brimstone. Yeah. Thus will I magnify myself and sanctify myself, and I will be known in the eyes of many nations, and they shall know a higher Yahweh. Prophecies with us in this part. If you're part of this awakening, prophecies with you. If you're understanding your government is with the Messiah, prophecies with you. If you're understanding that at the end of this age, this government, these United Nations, these United States, this Pope power, this Christianity is about to be destroyed, prophecies with you. The majority of people are going to join forces with these powers, brothers and sisters, and they're going to be destroyed. That's why it's a remnant that's going to be saved. See, we need to understand when prophecy is against us and when prophecy is with us, right? With this situation, prophecy is with us. If we're trying to march on Washington to get rights from the government, prophecy is against us. We're not going to get it. If we think by joining in this political system, just because there's so-called black people in this political system, that's going to help us, prophecies against us. It's not going to work. Revelation, our final thing, Revelation chapter 20. Revelation chapter 20. I'm going to start at verse 6. I'm going to start at verse 6 and read down from verse 6 down to verse 9. This is the end of them. This is the second resurrection. This is the end of them. Blessed and holy is he that hath part in the first resurrection. On such the second death hath no power, but they shall be priests of Yahweh and of Messiah, and shall reign with him 1,000 years. And when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, the Caucasian people that's been leading the charge at the end, which is what's happening right now. The Caucasian man is leading the charge. He's running the corporations and the government. He's running the political system from Rome. The Caucasian man is doing it. To gather them together to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. And they went up on the breadth of the earth and compassed the camp of the saints about and the beloved city. And fire came down from Yah out of heaven and devoured them. Prophecies against them. If you're in the awakening truth, whether you are grafted in Gentile or bloodline Hebrew, prophecies for you. If you want to join forces, see, brothers and sisters, what we need to remember, and I'm done wrapping up here, what we need to remember is that always in prophecy, the winning side appears to lose. Never in any of the times that Yah delivered his people did it appear they were going to be delivered. It did not appear that the Israelites were going to be able to walk through the Red Sea on dry ground. They were hemmed in with mountains on both sides and the river and the sea behind them. They were stuck, but they were delivered. It did not appear. If the day before you told the Egyptians they were going to be in that position, they would have put their money there and said, hey, that's a good bet for us. We're going to win that. It always looked at that with Gideon fighting over 200,000 with 300. It did not look good for Gideon. Yet they won. It never looks good for Yah's people. That's why his deliverance is always marked. It's always fantastic. It has to be to give him the glory. So I want to tell you now, it's going to look good for your Fed. He's running this stuff. He's running his Federal Reserve. He's running his Christianity. He's running his money schemes, his banks, his businesses, his corporations. He's going into countries and crushing people and destroying the poor. He's using Islam as a weapon in the Middle East, radical Islam, to kill and destroy innocent people and Hebrews. He's enslaving us in places like Yemen, in places like Saudi Arabia, places like Somalia and Sudan. He's already doing it. He's been getting away with it. He's stripping all of the resources out of the land they call Africa. He's getting over the peers. And the only ones that's getting over with him are those coons that join forces with him. If you read Ezekiel 38, you'll see a lot of them coons. They mention Persians and Libyans and Ethiopians joining with them. Not all of them, just the coons. Because it looks like they're going to win. All those Donald Trumpian followers thinking because the Caucasian man's in power, he's not going to be in power. Those that just want to, you know, what they call that? What they call that? When you just choose the team that's winning all the time and whoever's winning is your team. That don't work with y'all. You got to choose his team because it's righteous, because it's right. That bandwagon, that's it, bandwagon. That's what these turncoat coons are that call themselves black and are running to these corporate interests while claiming to represent us. They coons, they turncoats, they sellouts, and they think they're going to win. Prophecies against them. Hitler thought he was going to win. You imagine a little short man, impotent short little man, ruling Europe, running through all of Europe like no problem. Looked like he was going to just destroy everything. Nobody can mess with his technology, yet he lost. Prophecies against them. It's with the awakened people. And that's why I set up the way it is, because only the genuine ones will come forth with the truth. Only the genuine ones. There's no gain to us in this world materially to come forth with the truth. The Most High has it that way. We will not gain materially from this truth. That's why we don't accept any money, brothers and sisters. You have to understand, if I was to gain from this truth, it would be as if I created the truth. I didn't create the truth. I didn't like, you know, it's not I'm some special person that should teach this word. Most High done all of that. He ordains it. He's ordaining his teachers. He gets the glory. So no, we don't want any of Caesar's money. But not many people are going to do that. Remember Gideon's 300. In the name of the Father Yah and of his son Messiah Yahushua.